to the channel. Just going to do a quick buyer's guide on this cls55 AMG. So just a few key points to actually look out for. I'm going to take this cover off actually. Put that there so you can just have a quick look. So first thing to look out for on these is while the car is running, make sure this pulley runs true, and they're both very common to actually break. I've operated mine here. These are metal ones with uprated bearings in the middle. The Supercharger pulley here as well. Again, this one you need to make sure, if you find that the Supercharger keeps cutting out as you're putting your foot down, then it means it's overheating. It's got a clutch in there as a safety. Cam covers, you can see on here, it's actually this top cam cover which actually leaks and not the bottom one. Bottom one I've done on both of mine. This top one doesn't actually have a seal. It's basically a Mercedes sealant that turns into a seal as it heats up, so it comes in a small gun. So that's relatively straightforward. Other than that, these are pretty bulletproof. Obviously the Supercharger here as well just needs a service regularly. Change oil is quite cheap and straightforward to do, and they last a long time. Engines are practically bulletproof. The code for this engine is m113k. Just show you the SBC pump connection here. So with this, the brakes on these, they're shared with a number of m113k engine cars, including actually McLaren SLR, same brake setup. So it's 8 pistons. These are relatively cheap as well. However, this has what's known as an SBC pump. So never ever change your brake pads without disconnecting this bit here, or the way to properly do it is actually use the star diagnostic to disable it. Again, every time you open the front door or any of the doors on the car, these actually brake pads pinch down, so you definitely don't want your fingers in there. Let's have a quick look. So again, it's got air struts on these. The front tend to be pretty reliable, to be honest. From my experience, it tends to be the back that starts sagging down. So at the back, I've replaced mine. You won't be able to see it from here, but I've replaced them with R-knot struts. What tends to happen is you have 2 airbags at the back, and there's a small tank. Once that starts to leak air, you're just going to see that the car sinks. If it sinks more than, you know, every 3-4 days, then you know you've got a problem. I'll take you guys over to the air compressor as well. Actually, on this particular car, it's actually located here. Just behind there is the air compressor. Now what you really don't want to do is just go ahead and change the air compressor. The reason the compressor gets burnt out is if it needs to stay on for more than a minute at a time. That normally happens when you've got a leak. So don't just replace that, because the chances are that will go again. It means you've got a leak elsewhere. Another really common problem on this w219 shape is the harness here that runs along here. So basically what happens there is all the wiring that can break. It literally stops the boot from working in terms of central locking, number plate lights. All of that stops working. It's all related to this one harness here, so that will need rewiring and resoldering and so on and so forth. Again, as the cars start to get a bit older, they've all got this problem where the water tends to leak into the actual boot floor. You can start to see here on mine, it's started to crack the rubber, so these are actually quite hard to get hold of now. I'm not sure if you can get them brand new anymore. But again, something to watch out for. You want to really lift the boot carpet up and see if there's any water in there. In terms of the interior, to be honest, it's pretty reliable. You know, the massage functions and everything that are available on these seats, they always tend to work. I haven't really heard of any failures. Again, the gearbox as well, really bulletproof. It's only a 5-speed. The cls55, which is 6.2 naturally aspirated, That comes with 7-speed box. This is the 5.5 supercharged. Comes with a 5-speed gearbox. This can handle a lot more torque than the newer car. Right, so the other thing you want to check is you want to make sure this button works. This is actually to raise the suspension up. So once you press that, you should see on the dash there, vehicle rising, you should start to see it slowly go up. Again, if you've got problems with suspension, it's gonna, you need to have a look at the whole system really, A to Z. The best diagnostic is the Mercedes Star. There are other ones available, but Star tends to have the best functionality on it. My one's a little bit modified, to be honest, so you'll be able to see from the exhaust and things. Otherwise, I would say they're pretty reliable. There isn't really anything else to look out for. As the cars start to age, this is another thing, just you can see all the pulleys they run through. So if you saw any kind of vibration here, you know it's got an issue. These are made from plastic originally from the factory, and they all break, so it's only a matter of time. If you've got one without it, it's only a matter of time. I wouldn't replace it with the OEM one, I'd get an uprated one. On my car, I've had the headlights done. What tends to happen is start to oxidize here at the top. I've had them kind of refurbished, but this is going to get quite common as cars get a bit older now. The back discs, again, they're quite cheap to get. Front and back discs, probably talking about 250 quid, 250 pounds, so it's not bad at all compared to some of the other cars. You can now clearly see how much gap there is here since I've pressed that button to raise it up. Just there as well. On these cars we've got a couple of modes on the suspension setting here. So this is Sport 1, just makes it a bit more stiff. Sport 2 drops it about 20mm, especially if you're doing more than 50, so the car will sit a lot better, it will hold the road a lot better. There isn't any fancy throttle controlled settings and things. One of the things to be aware of, you can see here, my car's in S at the moment. Once I put it in, press this and get it into comfort, the car will always pull off in second gear, in drive. Something this powerful actually probably an advantage to do that. When you put it in sport, it does make it hold the revs a bit longer. It does let you change gear a bit quicker. Nothing like what you would get on a modern dual clutch gearbox. You can see it's just got these little paddles here. To be honest, gear change is pretty slow on this, but given how much torque it has, you don't really need that many gears. It will do 80 in second gear quite easily. You can see here from the switches, this is your dynamic seats. Once you press that, literally the bolsters here on the side, as the driver turns the steering wheel, they will actually grab you. Then it has what's known as a pulse button just here. I don't know if you guys can see that. That will actually massage the passenger or the driver. Both seats have got it. This doesn't have the cooled option seats, but that is an option as well. Some of the other things to be aware of, compared to this engine actually appears in a number of Mercedes, so that includes SL55, S55, E55 as well. One thing to be aware of, the steering rack on the cls55 is just that much quicker. I think it's about 15% quicker than what you get on the E55. Although in terms of the actual outright speed, the E55 is a bit quicker because it's lighter than this. Right, another thing to be aware of on this engine, it's actually got 16 spark plugs. So once you give it a good rev, if you see any blue smoke, depending on which side it actually comes out from, it's going to need change the spark plugs. That normally in itself is just where the oil leaks, starts leaking all the way down and dripping towards where the spark plugs are, and it starts burning oil that way. In terms of modifications, the most popular one is to actually change this pulley for a smaller one. The lowest you can probably go is around 77mm without having any problems on the cooling side. After that, you need to operate the cooling. Quite popular mod is the Johnson pump, so that will help with the cooling side. Because it's supercharged, it's really important to keep the cooling under check, otherwise you'll end up losing power.